Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. So I'm doing another movie review. I'm talking about a movie that I saw like last week, I think? Yeah, last week. The movie is called The Kashmir Files. It's a Bollywood film and it stars Anupam Kher and several other Bollywood actors, you know? And The Kashmir Files is a pretty much like a historical film, basically talking about the historical like events that occurred with like the war between Kashmir and, the Kashmir in India. Basically the the Hindu exodus, like basically a purging, like, and slaughtering, a mass genocide of Hindus, that were living in that area by the Muslims that were fighting them in Kashmir. That's pretty much what the Kashmir Files is about. Basically, historical documents talking about the exodus of the Kashmir Pandits. Basically how they were all slaughtered, eventually rounded up and executed and brutally murdered. So yeah, it's a pretty violent film, so I don't recommend this movie for people that are for children. I don't really recommend it for children because, I'm not sure they'd want to like see all the images. There's actually people being sawed in half, being executed, being shot in the head, actual gun violence. So I don't really recommend it for children, but I mean, if you want to see it, by all means, go ahead. I mean, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was all that great. I just thought it was okay. I actually like cried real tears during the movie, during some parts of it, because it's actually a really sad thing that's actually happened in real life. Actual exodus and actual genocide of Hindus living in the Kashmir area. The images are pretty shocking and traumatizing a little bit. It's just a movie, granted, but I mean, this shit actually happened in real life, so it's not really something I can just say, oh, it's just a movie, it's just acting, it's just a story, because it's actually real. It's not just a story that was made up or conceived by some fan fiction writer. This is actually real stuff that happened in real life. The Kashmir Pandits were horribly murdered by the extremists living in Kashmir, the terrorists, I should say, because, I mean, these people are nuts. If they think that killing people is going to get them into heaven, they're absolutely insane if they think that. I don't understand the mentality at all. Like, how is killing people going to get you into heaven? That sounds like completely counterintuitive, but, I mean, that's just me, I guess. I mean, I don't see the logic behind that, but it's probably just me. But yeah, the film was criticized for being propaganda against Muslims, promoting Islamophobia, which we all know in real life that is not true, because some Muslims, some Kashmir Muslims in Kashmir were also killed during the genocide. So yeah, Muslims were also killed during the genocide. So it's clearly not right to say that all the Muslims were involved. Absolutely not. The film was criticized for promoting Islamophobia because Muslims are also killed during the genocide, but I don't think the film was really trying to do that. They're just trying to show some historical events, maybe making some stuff, maybe showing a little bit of, maybe fictionalizing some events, adding some stuff while trying to remain true to the story, adding true details, but also adding a few extra details to make it more dramatic, for dramatic effect, you know. So anyways, the film starts with in the 1980s, and there's these boys that are playing cricket, they're just tossing a ball around, playing cricket like any Indian children would do. They're playing cricket, and all of a sudden, all of a sudden one of the boys gets attacked by a bunch of Muslims, and his friend tries to drag him out of there, and they try to run back home to safety, but at that point the Muslims are attacking the Hindus, trying to declare independence from India, and in Kashmir. So the boys have to flee for safety. Their grandfather finds them, and they all head back home. But when they do, they're confronted by one of the grandfather's former students, who ends up killing their father, and ends up murdering the father, Karan, and then forces the mother to drink the father's blood drenched in rice. It's absolutely disgusting. Eat the rice drenched in the father's blood. Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. So, yeah, it's pretty traumatizing. So it's a flash forward to the present day. Like, this film goes back and forth between the past and the present. It's a flashbacks back and forth, between the present day and what happened in the past in Kashmir, the war that took place there, and the slaughtering that took place, and the mass genocide that eventually occurred. So, anyways, we flash forward to the present day. The grandfather is still there apparently, and a few other people that are fighting, freedom fighters that were fighting during the war, and Krishna, the grandson, returns home from the college, and And they all greet him, they're all eating and everything, and and they're all reluctant to tell Krishna the truth about what really happened to his mother and brother. They're reluctant to tell him the truth about what really happened to his mother and brother. They're all keeping it a secret from him. But, Krishna eventually finds out anyway, sooner or later. He finds out about the mass genocide, about the so-called exodus, because it wasn't really an exodus. Because exodus, it's supposed to mean freedom. Exodus is supposed to mean freedom, escape to freedom. What happened wasn't an exodus. It was a genocide. They were murdered, horrifically murdered, those Indians and Indians in Kashmir, brutally slaughtered. So it wasn't really an exodus. It was more like a genocide rather than an exodus, which it was. It was a genocide. It wasn't an exodus at all. But yeah, so meanwhile, at the college, Krishna is running for student body president, and the professor advised him to use the propaganda against the government, to blame the government for all their problems, say the government is responsible for this and the government is responsible for that, and the government is basically responsible for all the troubles going on in the world. And in order to get the people to vote for him, to get them on his side, he has to tell them directly that the government is responsible and the government should be held accountable. So obviously, it's not really a clean strategy, but that is politics for you. That's what politicians truly do. They try to make the other side look like the enemy, so they can make their side more favorable. But I mean, this is already a common tactic that we should already be well aware about in politics. But anyways, yeah. So Krishna tries to win the student election, and then his grandfather tells him the truth about what really happened, about what happened to his mother and brother. Shiva and the mother Shanda, I think her name was. Yeah, I think. And then the grandfather eventually ends up dying, and then Krishna ends up being told the truth about what happened 30 years ago, like from the freedom fighters that were at his house, at his grandfather's house, and they ended up telling him what really happened. So Krishna ends up traveling eventually to meet the person that murdered his family, and the person tells him that he truly changed his ways and reformed, And then Krishna eventually stumbles upon the files of the murders and the genocides that took place back in Kashmir. And he's pretty shocked to see what he finds out, honestly. And then Krishna, at the end of the film, gives a speech about Kashmir's history and about how they cannot ignore the truth about what happened, with the murders that took place and the injustice that took place and everything. And, the students are booing him, a majority of the students, because they're not pleased with this. But a few of the students, however, are on his side and defending him. And they show a flashback at the end of the movie of what really happened to Krishna's mother and brother, how the government, how the soldiers, murdered Krishna's mother brutally. It was pretty horrific. They put her in a sawing machine. They sawed her body in half. The gruesome sight. And they forced Shiva to watch it. And the kid was crying and sobbing. And Krishna was meanwhile hiding in the house, playing with rice. And the soldiers never found him. And then they keep the grandfather alive to tell tell the people of India what happened. And they line up Shiva and the other Kashmir Pandits. They all line them up. And they murder them all one by one, shooting them in the head. And they save Shiva for last. They shoot him in the head. Yeah, it's not really a film I'd recommend for children, honestly. It made me actually cry a little bit during scenes of it, because the violence is pretty traumatizing. And these people killed everybody. They didn't even spare children. Even children got murdered. It's pretty much unbelievable, honestly, to think about. Even children got murdered. And it just comes to show the reality of the situation, of the history that took place, of the Kashmir Pandits that took place, the mass genocide, not really an exodus that took place. But yeah, those are just my thoughts about the 2022 film, The Kashmir Files. It was a pretty good film, I'd say, but I wouldn't really want to watch it a second time, honestly. Once was probably good enough for me. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Those are my thoughts about The Kashmir Files. Stay safe, everybody. Tonville Legend, 826, out.